gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
May the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer.
Amen.
Amen. Normally at this time I'd say please be seated, but hopefully you are all seated. You probably are seated with a cup of coffee or with a beverage of your choice. I realized I failed to have my collar on. I was so overcome by trying to get this video set up. We have the camera, it now is working fine. We don't quite know, Betty is here to help. We don't quite know what we did to get it working fine, because when we started, all you could see were the steps. You couldn't see the altar, you couldn't see the Christus Rex behind the altar. It was very sad. And you couldn't see my head, which probably was an improvement. But now you get to see my head, which is definitely not an improvement. You get to see that in my waywardness, I forgot my collar, but I did manage to get to the church, and you are here, and this is Good Shepherd Sunday. And I hope, if you haven't already, you will take the time to go on the Friday link and look at the video called Sheep in Ditch. And if you don't have the Friday link, just go on YouTube and type in Sheep in Ditch and you will see it. And it was the catalyst for today's sermon. Indeed, today's sermon, and if there are any little ones, maybe they know this, this little ditty. It came to me. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as
Snow.
And everywhere that Mary went, the little lamb was
Would go.
sure to go. We all know that. And you know, that little ditty is probably how most of us internally interpret the Good Shepherd. Mary is the figure of Jesus. And we are the little white lambs dutifully following everywhere that Jesus goes. That's the image we love. We're all clean and nice and sweet. We're all obedient. We're all good followers. We are all faithful servants. We just follow Jesus wherever Jesus leads us. And now, to the video. Except the reality is, sheep are very dirty animals. Their fleece is very oily, which means it attracts and holds dirt. They are wanderers, which means that briars and thorns and broken branches and all kinds of junk get in their fleece. And if you really want to be grossed out, if you continue with the sheep theme on the YouTube, you will find a video of a sheep that hadn't been sheared in something like 8 years. And the poor thing is filthy and can't see because of the hair growing in his eyes. Anything but that little lamb that Mary had. But you see, the reality is you and I are very much like real sheep. Real sheep, in addition to being dirty and getting stuff in their coats, real sheep are also easily led astray. Indeed, one sheep sees something and goes off to check it out, and the whole herd follows that sheep wherever it goes, including over cliffs, or in the video I commend to you, jumping into a ditch that it then can't get out of. And you and I in our life are constantly doing that. We're constantly mistaking and taking off on false leads, following things other than Jesus Christ, sometimes mistaking them for Jesus Christ. Sometimes simply seeing and thinking that to follow money or power or influence or prestige or the accolades of others is the most important thing, and Jesus will follow along with us. But we humans, just like the sheep in the ditch, are constantly getting ourselves stuck in ditches. Sometimes it's the ditch of addiction. Sometimes it's the ditch of anger. Sometimes it's the ditch of jealousy. Sometimes, certainly in these times, it's the ditch of condemnation, of fear of others, of fear of the unknown, just of fear, anxiety. Thinking that we need to make ourselves secure through our own financial acumen, and then we can worry about Jesus. All kinds of ditches along the way. And like the fellow in the video, Jesus is constantly working and tugging and pulling and finally even taking a strap and catching it so that he can get leverage to get us up out of the ditch we have chosen to jump into. And like the sheep in the video, all too often, as soon as we are freed from that ditch, we go and hop off and go our own merry way again, saying, "Good job, Jesus, I'm with you all the way, as soon as I take care of these other 50 things that are more important to me right now." The best part of that whole video comes next. The sheep, I swear, doesn't go more than about 50, maybe 100 feet, and it jumps right back into the ditch a little further on and gets stuck even harder. And that is you, and that is me. We jump right back into those sins, those things, those priorities that we mistake as needing to come first. And once again, Jesus, the Good Shepherd, comes along and hauls us out and sets us free once again to follow him. And once in a while, we do. And that's what makes it all worthwhile for Jesus. Not because we are sweet little white-haired lambs, all clean and pretty and dutiful and following Jesus, but because by the grace of God, once in a while we get it right, and we do get out of the ditch that we have created for ourselves and do for at least a while follow Jesus. When I was 16, my father put in for retirement. He had been ordained an Episcopal priest. He was working for the state of Michigan in the social welfare department. He put in for retirement in order to go full-time into the priesthood. Only he got sick, strangely sick. It took them several months to figure out that it was lung cancer that had moved into the brain. And in the early 1960s, that was not something that was curable. And so just before I started my senior year in high school, my father died, and I realized, because my mother was completely overwhelmed, that I really was on my own. That there was nothing and no one to support or guide me or protect me. That everything I did from that moment on, I had to figure out for myself. And one of the things I did is I would go into the church that I had grown up in, and over their altar, they had a stained glass that I still love dearly to this day. And in the stained glass, there is the figure of Jesus reaching out his arms as if to welcome and enfold. And he's standing in a field, and I know there were some flowers around. I think there were some sheep around too, which is why I always think of this as Jesus as the Good Shepherd. And I would sit there and I would stare and stare and stare at that picture until in my imagination, I was free from all my cares and worries and free to run into those arms and have Jesus put his arms around me and hold me, something I longed for desperately. But the vision never stopped there. For always, after a while, in my imagination, in my vision, I felt Jesus' arms slowly turning me around until my back was to Jesus, and he was extending my arms out like his to a world so broken, so lost, so in need. That is Jesus as the Good Shepherd for me. Yes, Jesus comforts us in our sorrow, comforts us in our anxiety, comforts us in our grief, comforts us in our fear. Yes, Jesus is always ready to redeem us and save us and bring us back from the ditches we get in. Jesus' greatest desire and the reason that God sent Jesus Christ into this world so that you and I would learn to rest in those arms, in the comfort and safety of those arms, in order to turn around and reach out our hands, like Jesus, into a world that is in desperate need of caring shepherds. So, may you and I laugh a little bit at the fact that we're hardly the little lamb and the Mary had a little lamb. And we're very much like that dirty sheep that keeps getting in the ditch. That God, through Jesus, never, ever gives up on us. And that when we, for a moment, figure out how to reach our arms out in love and to help someone else out of their ditch, all the heavens rejoice that we, at least for a moment, got it right. Let us reaffirm our faith in the words of the Nicene Creed.